Welcome to Brown Brothers Book Banter, the podcast where Kenneth and Kyle dive into the vibrant world of children's literature. Join us each week as we explore the enchanting realm of books featuring insightful interviews with renowned children's book authors, discussions on the latest title releases, and inspiring conversations with passionate librarians. Now, here are your hosts, Kenneth and Kyle Brown. So I had an interesting time at a school this week. Kenneth?
You did?
I did. Got into discussions about weeding, and we were looking through the collection that they had, and it was a fairly new collection to them, and they were not familiar with their collection like they would want to be, that maybe somebody that had been looking at the same collection for years. And so we uploaded the MARC records to the website, and we ran all kinds of reports, and it showed that they just had massive amounts of books that when we went to the shelf, they just weren't there. So right away there, we learned that there was a disconnect between what was on the shelf and what was showing on their circulation system. They didn't know what they had and what they didn't have, because it showed they had 300 and something in one of their due areas, and they had 22 of them on the shelf. So
it's really tough because, I've been doing this for over 23 years, you more than that. And I've had schools where they might have had 15 libraries in that librarians in that time. And so the turnover leads to a big disconnect, like you said, in the collection. You don't really know what you have. You know, someone might be in there for 1 year and they don't do anything. Books don't come back. Books get weeded, discarded, whatever. And the circulation system is not updated. And so it really can lead to lots of problems. I had a weeding situation this week. I've got a school that has too many books. I mean, like, they have no more room, and they're about to order a lot more books. They don't have any place to put them. So we were going through all the different weeding ideas, and she did the thing on the Permabound website where she did analyze the collection. We were looking through her list, and she was going through, that book from 1976 is about fall. Well, that really hasn't changed any. I'll keep that one. And we just kept going through, and it's kind of like, I used to be an umpire, and it's kind of like calling balls and strikes. You go through those lists, and it's like, okay, that's a keeper. That's not a keeper. That's a keeper. That's not a keeper. And you just have to go through those lists and decide. There's other ways to do it. You have to do the eye test. You have to go through and just look and see which books are beat up and so in such bad shape that the kids aren't going to pick them out anyway. And let's see, there's other ways. The eye test also, if you see 16 books on Venus or
Pluto.
16,
is it a planet right Pluto. Now, by the way, Kenneth? I don't
remember what it is. Is it Pluto? Is it a rock? Is it I don't know what it is. But same thing, you can go through, and if you see a lot of books about one thing, maybe you go through and take off the oldest ones. I was looking at a website this week, which is really cool if everybody went to it. It's called librarylearners.com. They have a lot of lesson plans, a lot of great blog posts, but they had one where you can make a rubric and let some of your trusted students, some of your older students, sit in the library and go through books for you and kind of help decide, does this book stay or does this book go? So it can kind of be a community thing, give them a little bit of ownership in the library. And, weeding's not fun, but it's part of being a librarian. And I feel for the ones that are having to do it, for sure.
The Permabound website does a really great job of that. It has a section on there that's just age titles, and it's anything in your collection that is outside of 15 years. And then they also have a section that is for the more age-sensitive titles. One of the books that was in the collection that I looked at here recently had a book on virtual reality from 2002. Well, a little bit's changed in virtual reality from 2002. And so I think that it's really nice that the Permabound website makes it to where it's so easy to identify those titles. So even if you didn't want to create a rubric and you just wanted to go through and have the kids pull off of a spreadsheet that is generated from the Permabound website, you could also do that. Just don't forget, when you weed it, take it out of your circulation system.
Yes. And see, weeding brings up a whole nother podcast where we could talk about all the creative ways we've heard of people getting rid of their books
Oh,
once they weed them, because sometimes it's controversial,
yeah.
especially if someone sees a bunch of books in the dumpster or whatever. So we might talk about that.
It's definitely something if you're going to be removing books to make sure that you know what your school or district's policy is towards doing that.
Let's see what else is going on. It's almost Halloween. It's a little late to order Halloween books, but I wonder if some people have some favorite read alouds that are spooky for kids.
I know the Creepy Crayon, didn't that come out this last year? That great series.
Yes, that's pretty recent. And Tom Fletcher had that book that we really liked called "There's a Monster in Your Book."
That's right.
And things like that. So there's lots of fun Halloween read alouds. If you have a favorite, make sure you let us know, brownbrothersbooks@gmail.com, or post it in the comments. But it is almost Thanksgiving. That's the next thing. And I wonder if there's some great books on that people could be reading. I think about books about thank you, things with thank you. There's a thank you book I think Todd Parr wrote.
How about Tracy Sorrell?
Yes, Oklahoma's Own.
Yep, that We Are Grateful. Is that
Yes.
Is that the one you're thinking of?
Yeah, I'm thinking of that one. Yes, I think anything. So if you have a favorite book about thanks or Thanksgiving that you like to read to the kids, or ones that you promote during November, let us know that, and we'll mention that on a future podcast so everyone can make sure that they have that ready for Thanksgiving.
Each week there are new books that are coming out, and Kenneth looks through and weeds through them and finds generally he finds authors that we know, that they've been on the Sequoia list or the Redbud list, or we just know that they usually do a really nice job with their titles. And so what do you got for us this week, Kenneth?
All right, well, let's start with Julie Murphy, former YA or high school Sequoia author.
Yeah. Dumpling.
And she's written Dumpling and Puddin' and Sweet Pea. Anyway, she has her first picture book out, Chubby Bunny, and it's had 2 starred reviews already. So be looking out for that one. Ursula Le Guin, you might remember her, 1974 Sequoia list, Tombs of Atuan, but she wrote Cat Wings and 3 other books in that series. Well, she has since passed, but her son is in charge of her literary estate, and he made a few minor changes. There were some words in there that were kind of outdated, but they've re-released them today, all 4 of them in hardcover and paperback, with just those minor changes for a new generation. So look for those, Cat Wings and the other books in the series. Those, they're out, they're fresh if you want to update your collection with those. Diary of a Wimpy Kid, no brainer, number 18, out this week. So that's pretty cool. Sequoia Award 3-time nominee, Deborah Hopkinson. She has come out with the Adventures of Trim series, and she's, sometimes authors or series will come out 2 at a time. So the first 2 volumes are out, and there's the story about this ship cat. The old time ships with pirates and things, they always had a cat that was on the boat, and it's about a cat named Trim and all of the adventures. Also, Holly Black, former Sequoia author who wrote Doll Bones, wrote Sir Morian, The Legend of a Knight of the Round Table, that comes out this week. If you have a student that has alopecia, this might be a good one. Sparkle by Lakita Wilson. And then if you have kids that like the Bigfoot Queen series, the Littlest Bigfoot series, Bigfoot Queen #3 by Jennifer Weiner is out this week. So there's some new books that are pretty popular by some popular authors. And I mentioned the alopecia because I had a customer the other day that mentioned that she had a student, and we helped her find the book Hair Love and some other, a few other books that would really be something that student could see themselves in a book. And I think that's so important for a student to be able to walk in the library and see themselves in a book.
So can you tell us about what we've got next?
All right. So the Redbud Read Aloud 2024 Master List includes a book called Bug Sandwich. And so we, invited all the Redbud authors to join us for the podcast. And we so we started looking at Brady Smith, and we didn't realize he's a Hollywood actor.
Yeah.
He has over 70 credits in Hollywood. He's been on Parks and Rec. He's married to a famous actress, we got to sit down with him, and not only did we talk about Bug Sandwich and read alouds, but he was so gracious and
Yes.
fun, and we just sat there and chatted like we were old pals from high school, and it was a really great time. So we're very excited to bring you an interview with Brady Smith. We are very excited and honored to welcome Brady Smith today. You know him as the author of Bug Sandwich, which is published by Nancy Paulson and Penguin. He is the author of Bug Sandwich, which is on our 2024 Redbud Read Aloud Award. And you might recognize him. He's been on TV a lot over the last 20 years. I was watching Parks and Rec this morning, and actually, he's on there. So we want to welcome from Los Angeles, Brady Smith.
Hello, everybody. Nice to be here. Thanks for having me, guys.
Thanks for being
We're really excited to have you on the Redbud Read Aloud Challenge this year. And we just thought we might sit and talk about this book and some of the other of your books.
Great. Yeah, I'd love to.
Well, let's start off with Bug Sandwich. Again,
I need to keep doing this. I just
a real
every time
fan
we say it, I'll
favorite.
just plunk it up there.
It's a real fan favorite with our Redbud group, and we just wondered if you might share with us where the idea came from and how it developed in the process.
Absolutely. So Bug Sandwich is my third children's book, and it is really hits close to home because I have a 13-year-old daughter, an 8-year-old son, and a wife. My wife and my son, for some reason, are always harassed by insects. They have much sweeter blood than my daughter and I guess. At least that's the excuse that my wife says. But I just had this idea of they were putting sunblock on, and Harper and I were both my daughter. We were just kind of doing our thing and not putting sunblock on. And I had the idea of how fun it would be. With children's books, you always want to have a lesson. So obviously, I worked the lesson out, but I just thought it'd be fun to write a story about a little boy who's constantly bugged by bugs and how he went about trying to resolve that issue and what he learned in the process, which is basically, if I can, kind of cut to the ending, that you don't need to do onto others what they do onto you. Just because somebody treats you one way doesn't mean that you need to treat them that way back. And it all turned out to be just kind of a misunderstanding because bugs are just doing what bugs do. It's nothing personal. Right. And the boy learned that. And then there's a little, twist at the end with the dad.
Yes.
Well, speaking of your son and your daughter, tell us a little bit about when you were writing this book. What are they your biggest critics? What goes on in your household when you're in the process?
My wife and my children are my biggest critic. I think that I'm my biggest critic. I think they're much bigger critics, and I appreciate that. With Bug Sandwich, so very, very short Cliff Note story here. The very first book that my wife and I did together was called You're Missing It. And the main character of that book is a little boy. So my daughter, who is 5 years older than my son, when the book came out, she's like, "Oh, that's cool. Why am I not in the book?" So my second children's book was called I'm Getting a Shark. And I had a little girl in it. And she was the lead character. It was basically about a little girl who overhears her parents talking about her birthday in the other room. And she is certain that she hears them say that she's getting a pet shark for her birthday. Not the case. And there's also a message like we are talking about that goes along with the book. So by the time Bug Sandwich came out, I think that both my kids had felt like they had, put their stamp on appearance-wise in the book world, at least where I'm involved. And they're, they come in, they look at the drawings, they're like, "Oh, that's cool." But then I think it's anything that the parent does, they're like, "Oh, all right, whatever." And then they're off, So they will tell me what they're thinking, but I don't think they give it that much thought necessarily. my wife, I'll bounce ideas off her, and she's very honest with me. She's, she loved bug sandwich. She thought it was just a fun idea. But there's been, I mean, 50 ideas that I've thrown out that, she won't sugarcoat it. She'll just be like, yeah, nope, sorry, I don't get it. That's what she'll say. She'll be like, I don't get it.
Was there anything in Bug Sandwich that she cut out?
That my wife cut out?
Yes, that she just said, "Hey, you got to take that out, Brady."
No. The process of writing a book is, and I'm sure you guys know this, but there's a few chefs in the kitchen, right? You have your, the agent that introduces you to the publisher, and then you have the publisher, and then you have the editor, and then you have the art director. So there's a lot of a lot of opinions floating around. And most of the time, at least my experience has been, when I write a book, I have an idea, I flesh it out as much as I can, I send it off, and then it's just like, that's when, the collaboration comes. So things will shift. With You're Missing It, the very first book that we did, it was very, very fantastical and rhyming. And, it was my first attempt at a children's book. So I was just doing what I thought. I feel like as an artist, you have to do what you know, right? They always say, write what you know. And I feel like there's a lot of truth to that. So I was making it what I thought kids would want to read, as opposed to how I wanted to communicate this story. And that was a very big lesson for me. So my point is that the very first draft of You're Missing It was like, red robots ride a rhinoceros, right? Yeah. Seriously. And my publisher, who's wonderful, Nancy, was like, cute, but mm-mm. And then we went through a full rewrite, and now that's just kind of like the evolution of making a book, where there's the collaboration process. But no, my wife's she's never been like, yeah, page 18 doesn't work, you need to change page 18. It's kind of like the whole scenario, as opposed to little, pieces of the pie, if you will.
Kenneth at the beginning mentioned that you've been on television throughout your life.
Yep.
What brought you to the realization that this next step or endeavor, if you will, was in the world of picture books?
Acting is a lot of fun. It truly is. And this is just my opinion, but it's between the words action and cut, when you get to actually act, right? And again, the collaboration with the other actors. It's fun. All the stuff that goes along with it. Again, lots of chefs in the kitchen, agents, managers, casting directors, producers, all these people, and they're all, they're a part of the cog in the wheel. But what I discovered kind of by accident when I wrote this children's book is that it's my story, which is awesome, and it's my voice. And all the jobs that I had done as an actor, I'm saying someone else's words in their story. So that's kind of where I was like, wow, this is cool. I can be the voice of, and create the story, and, not have to, again, with the book, there's a lot of collaboration, but ultimately you're the one telling the story, So that's kind of how I looked at it. I still act and I still enjoy the process, but I definitely enjoy the fact that I get to be home and work on a book and take my kids to school and pick my kids up from school. And, sometimes when you're on a set, you're there for many, 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 many hours. And sometimes that set's on a different location. I'll find myself in Knoxville or wherever, and gone for a month. So this has been a happy kind of fun transition, at least as of late. But it's been 5 years now, and I'm working on my 7th book. So I feel super grateful. Like, I really do. I don't take any of it for granted. And I feel very blessed and lucky to be able to to do the books. So, and it's also, there's nothing cooler than walking into a library or a Barnes and Noble or a bookstore, any bookstore, and seeing a kid like flipping through a book that you did. I just have had that experience recently, and it tears me up. I'm not going to lie to you. Like it chokes me up. I can't even wrap my head around it. It's just the neatest thing ever.
Well, back to what you're talking about with having control over the book. Half of our Redbud authors each year, they have to count on the illustrations from someone else. So that must be a great feeling to know that you have absolutely complete control over the content because of your talents as an illustrator.
Thank you. Yes, very much so. My mom was an elementary school librarian, and she always wanted me to do a children's book, and I just never. For years, I had a few ideas, but then I just didn't feel like it was that light bulb, moment. And then when the very first book, it's actually a funny story how it came about. My son was probably 8 months old, maybe 11 months old, and we were in the yard. My wife was making dinner, and I was outside doing the one-handed push on the swing with my son, and looking at my phone with the other hand and just doing this, like we're all guilty of. And my wife literally opened up the kitchen windows and yelled at me lovingly across the yard, "You're missing it."
Oh, yeah.
That, my friends, was a light bulb moment. I was like, oh, wow. Like it just hit me like, out of nowhere. And then that was the genesis of the very first book. So, but yeah, it is nice to have the ability to draw and come up with the characters by myself and play around with this book, Bug Sandwich. I think there's one page in here where I think, and my son loves to say this, he's like, "How many bugs did you draw on that page, Dad?" And I mean, it must be like that one page.
Yeah, incredible.
I mean, 500, 600 bugs, man. It took me forever. But it was fun. I love to do it.
We're amazed by the illustrators. I mean, we interviewed a graphic novelist yesterday who wrote and illustrated her own graphic novel, and just thinking about all the different pains that she had to do, and just there's a lot of work in the illustration part. I mean, I'm not saying the words are easy, but the time on the illustrations is incredible. That page alone, how long did that take you?
It took me a while. I don't, I just kind of sit down and I'll work on something for an hour and a half, 2 hours. Then I have to get up and I have to do something else. And then I have to come back to it. It's funny that you said, young reader graphic novels, because I have a series called Louie and Bear. And after the very first children's book came out, You're Missing It, my agent was like, "What's your next idea?" And, I just was throwing out more children's books ideas. And she was like, "I want you to write a young reader's graphic novel." And to me, growing up, like graphic novels were Frank Miller and Alan Moore, like The Dark Knight Returns and Watchmen. And I was like, that's not very kid friendly, but I didn't know at the time that there was like a whole new branch of that book genre. So that's how it started with me, but I didn't know how to do it. And when you said the paneling, like it is unbelievable the amount, children's books usually, at least again in my experience, they're 32 pages long. Louie and Bear, the first book, is 160 pages long. And some of the pages might have 9, 10 panels. And if you do the math, it's like, almost 2,000 separate illustrations for one book. So yeah, that was like, I use the analogy that when I started Louie and Bear, I felt like I had an astronaut's uniform on and I was sitting in the cockpit of a rocket, but I had not gone through any astronaut training. I had no idea what I was doing, and they were counting down and I was about to shoot off, So it was one of those things that I kind of learned on the fly. But writing a graphic novel, at least the way I do it, I write it out like a novel. Like page 1, Louie turns to Bear and says, Bear replies, and then you have to take each of those sentences and figure out what's going to fit in the panel. how it's going to fit. It's like my wife makes fun of me because I am not good at math at all. And I feel like it's doing just a bunch of math at that stage. But then, I get to draw it. So it all works out.
Yes. And Louie and Bear, they just came out in a paperback printing a couple months ago, right?
Yes, thanks, man. They just came out in paperback. They, it's funny. I mean, it's silly. It could be viewed as silly, but you spend so much time with these characters, right? With Louie and Bear. At least I care about these characters. I want them to live these happy little literary lives, and I want kids to read about them just because I love them so much. I mean, they came from my head, and now it's like they have their own little story to tell. I mean, again, you guys have raised kids that are in college. That's kind of like what it's like. You come up with these characters, and then they come out in the book, and then you're like, okay, I hope you're good. All right, see you later. But by them coming out in paperback, that was awesome. And it's fun drawing them and drawing them for kids at signings and stuff. Like I feel like you're doing something for the greater good. You're propelling children's reading, and you're contributing some creativity to the world, which just feels nice.
Well, circling back to the Redbud, do you have any strategies, and maybe you could read a couple pages from your book, some strategies so when librarians are reading these books over and over to these kids, that they can implement and that would maybe give your book a little extra, a little bit of oomph? Yes.
I can definitely read some of the book and hopefully provide some zip and umph. I will just read the first couple pages.
Great.
This is just kind of funny, but all this stuff right here, whenever I have a public reading at a bookstore or something, and there's always parents with their kids and stuff, but I'm always like, Penguin Copyright supports creativity, encourages it. And I'll start reading all the small print, and I'll do it for like 45 seconds, and then I'll be like, I'm this kid. Like, okay,
that's great.
Because the kids are already starting to wander, and I'm like, just kidding.
That's awesome.
Every time I do it, my wife's like,
not again.
My shtick. I don't know. I just came up with it on the fly. This book, Bug Sandwich, is for my awesome wife, Tiffany, who's so dang sweet. The bugs just can't leave her alone. I love you, honey. Brownie points. Yes. This is a story about a special kid. In fact, all kids are special, really. But what made this particular boy special is that bugs just loved him. Nope. Unfortunately, not that kind of love. You can see all the bugs in a heart. They love to bite him. Ah! I find the louder and the more animated, the kids just dig it.
Yes.
So that's kind of like my way about, going about it. And then I always just kind of hold the book up so the kids can find in the little individual bugs, and I ask them how many bugs do they think's in the big bug, and it's always nice to keep the interaction going. And that way, it helps keep them focused and interested. So every day, all day, the bugs bugged the boy, and you can see they're in his bathtub. He's got a little snorkel going. They're following him on the scooter. He tried everything to avoid being bitten, and this is his pet cat. Watering him down with some yard mud, but nothing totally worked. And here he is in space, and the bug is inside his astronaut helmet. He says, "Fancy meeting you here." This was a fun illustration for me because I got to play with other tools. And also, this is the first book that I've ever done totally in the Procreate on an iPad. So all the other books have been watercolor and pen, And this one, just because it helped, when you do the art, you have to send it off. They have to scan it. It's in a boat. It takes forever. And this kind of cut out a little bit of the process, the middleman, where I could just send them PDF. So I know that they were happier to get it a little bit more speedily, if you would. So here we go. The little boy comes up with an idea. Light bulb, kind of like when my wife yelled at me from across the yard, and I thought I'd never see it. One day the boy had an idea. He snaps his finger, knocks the bug off. Hey, quite possibly his best idea ever. He was going to bite those bugs back. He was going to make them into a bug sandwich. I have the little, I love the old guys on the Muppets. Remember her? They're just kind of like off to the side, like just crabbing and throwing out their 2 cents. I just kind of had to pay a little homage to those dudes with the little bug conversation here. And this bug's like, can he do that? And the other one's like, geez, I don't know.
That's great.
That's my favorite laugh out loud moment in the book.
That to me, you have to do things that entertain you as well, right? So I try to keep myself giggling as much as possible when working on stories and stuff. But yeah, that's bug sandwich. It's super colorful and vibrant, and obviously has a lesson which the kids will hopefully not only learn something but also laugh at the end. So.
But when we're choosing the Redbuds, the words are what we really go for first. But with this one, not only is it great read aloud with the words, some of these detail, just like that one picture with 1,000 bugs on it. This is the kids are going to love to check this out and spend a week with it, looking at it at home. So that's a real testament to. I mean, it's just multifaceted. I don't know if that's the right word, but it
works.
Checks all the boxes.
I'm glad that you actually brought that up, because I like art where you can almost lose yourself in it. Any type of art, stories, paintings, sculptures. But when you have something there's enough going on in it that you can kind of get lost in it. And that's what I always try to do with children's books, where I want the kids to find something new that they might have not seen the first time they read it, or notice that one of the bugs has a bow tie. One's wearing a cowboy hat. One has cowboy boots on, so just little bitty details that will keep the kids interested and invested. But yeah, thank you. I always try to do that with my art.
Well, yes, your other art that we've seen, your galleries, the murals that you have created. I mean, they have this thing about them, just like you said, you can look at it 100 times and you're going to see something different. Just all the different unique details. Just really amazing talent that you have.
Thanks, man. I really do appreciate that. Thank you very much. Yeah, I feel blessed to be able to do it, and I don't take it for granted. And I always just want to, I always say that I want to make my art colorful and vibrant and happy, because there's always and already enough stuff out there that's not, and I don't want to contribute that. I want a kid, especially when they're young and they're so, eager to learn and full of energy and just, new, like just a shiny coin, right? Like I want to make stuff that makes them feel good and question and talk about it, and not pull the rug from under their feet, if you will.
We also, is your Instagram series, Random Acts of Drawnness, are you still working on that?
I did. Random Acts of Drawnness was all, again, like a happy accident, where it was the first quarantine, right at the very beginning of when everything kind of started, the crazy time, right? Where nobody knew what was happening and how to go about. And, it's when everybody was home for the first time, really. And I remember both my kids were on their laptops and they were doing their school. And one of my daughter's classmates' mothers texted me, and she was like, I have a great idea. And she, God bless her, right? But she was like, why don't you do some drawing tutorials for the kids. And I was thinking to myself, I know my kids, and the last thing they want to do is stare at a computer any longer, or be taught over a computer any longer. And then about a day later, I had this kind of epiphany where I was like, I know kids like to watch somebody draw. And I know that it's always fun when there's a stake involved, right? Like a timer or something. So I had this idea. I was like, what if I drew something? They could send me ideas, and I just drew for 30 seconds, and then we're done. And either I can make it in 30 seconds or I don't. It turned into this kind of happy thing. And then Penguin made we made a book out of it where it's anything to help keep the kids off just staring at an iPad all day,
Yes.
I am not doing random acts of drawness anymore because now people are out and living their lives. And, as of right now, all is great. But I did just team up with a toy company called Educational Insights. And I like them a great deal because it's all about educational toys that, require children using their brains and not just staring at something. And we have kind of partnered up where they have this a product called Play Foam, where it's similar to another product that I'm sure kids use all the time, but this one does not dry out. And you can, it's like little beads of foam that you can sculpt and stuff. And I just got on TikTok with them to start doing these creative videos where you're watching me create something, and then you can send me something to create. And I've only been doing it for about a month now. And it's on my TikTok page and Educational Insights TikTok page. Still hard for me to say that, TikTok. But I've been doing that now, just as another way to stay creative and keep making art.
We feel like we've taken way too much of your time, but we wanted to ask you real quick before we go about school visits. I'm sure that, I would guess that you don't travel very far to do school visits, but do you do anything virtual or?
I do virtual ones. I have done in-person ones, but like you said, they've been, pretty close to home. But I love doing virtual and in-person school visits. So I know that there's a whole team of people that handle all that stuff at Penguin. And I am always completely open to it. I dig it. I think it's fun, interacting with the kids and hearing them giggle. And it's like doing a live play. I enjoy it.
Yeah. Well, so we'll direct our people that are interested to your website. Is that where they would get the information to proceed with that? Okay.
Please do. Thank you. And whatever you guys have that I can help and, plunk up on my social, I would be more than happy to. So send me whatever you want me to, put up there.
That's really kind of you.
Yes, very kind. Gosh, this has just been a real joy, and I just appreciate you taking this time to meet with us. And,
absolutely,
we're so
Dan.
excited about Bug Sandwich, and our librarians across Oklahoma are just now starting to dig into this book, and we've already heard from so many of them that are just like, we just love this book, and so we really appreciate you dedicating this time in your life to writing picture books and children's books, and we just thank you for that.
Thank you, guys. This has been a pleasure meeting you guys and talking to you. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. And, sometimes it's nice to talk about this stuff because you go about your day, you're thinking about other things. So it's nice to kind of go down that little memory lane of how it all started and where it's going and how, just the process. So I've enjoyed this as well. Thank you.
Well, it's been a great time with Brady Smith, actor, creator, artist, and children's book author and illustrator. And this has just been a great time. Thank you again for joining us today, Brady.
Thank you, guys. Have a great day.
You too.
Take care. We hope that you all enjoyed that interview. Kenneth, do we have a giveaway this week?
We're going to give away another one of those Harry Potter kits. Welcome to Hogwarts Book Club. And if you'd like a chance to win that, it's got bookmarks and some other fun things in it. Let's do Parks and Rec, since Brady Smith was on that show.
It just means so much to Kenneth and I that you all are taking the time out of your day to listen to these things. And again, we are looking for librarians. If you would like to come on and talk about anything from new books to weeding to projects or programs that you do in your library that others can learn from, we would love to have you on. So we really hope that that you will contact us, and then we can add that feature to our podcast.
Yes. And we have more podcasts coming. We've got interviews already ready that we're editing. Several Redbud authors. We've even got some great footage from some Sequoia nominated authors. So lots more podcasts to come.